When we discuss what makes an anime great, we often hone in on aspects like the story, the character development, the animation, and the fight scenes. Pretty much all of these elements are quintessential to anime as a medium. Fight scenes are the foundation of a shonen demographic. The importance of story and character development should really go without saying. And without animation, it's literally not anime, it's just another live-action TV show. As well as being the most foundational, they are also the most overt aspects. The first thing we consciously notice when watching a new show is the animation quality. Then the story and character potential as the episode progresses, along with the fight scenes as they happen. But subconsciously, there's another vital aspect of anime that fans so often overlook. I'm going to play you 3 clips, and you tell me what you notice first. Going through our checklist from earlier, the fight scenes are exciting and interestingly choreographed. While we can't gauge the stories and character arcs from single out-of-context clips, fans of the respective shows know how beloved they each are, and the animation quality for all of them is impeccable. But the standout element from all 3, and what gives each clip, and by extension each show, their identities, is the sound design. Take this fight from Samurai Champloo. As I play it again in the background without any sound, it feels flat and underwhelming. That experiment can be applied to just about any scene in any anime. All of the clips over the top of this video essay have a fraction of the impact that they would if they were played with sound. That's because sound is one of the most important and most underrated parts of anime. The series I want to focus on in this video is one that makes full use of the creativity and freedom of sound design. As well as having well choreographed fight scenes, Fire Force is renowned for having some of the best sound design in modern anime. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the biggest fan of the show as a whole. I think the characters are fun, and the plot provides surface level entertainment, but I think there are big tonal inconsistencies that make it feel unbalanced and lacking narrative identity. Not to mention that Asushi Okubo's writing of female characters is considered bad even by anime standards. Even with the problems I just mentioned, when I watched Fire Force for the first time, I was just entertained enough to keep going. But then I got to this scene. In the episodes building up to Benimaru's big moment, I had noticed that Fire Force's fight scenes felt far more impactful than most other anime, but I couldn't put my finger on why. But this scene put everything into place. Fire Force is a series that both respects and understands the importance of sound design in multimedia storytelling. Without sound, anime wouldn't be anime. I know that sounds like a redundant phrase, but it is one of the essential elements of the medium. Without it, it's silent animation, or you could go so far as to even call it animated manga. Without sound, there is no dialogue to introduce the characters or progress their arcs, no score or soundtrack to enhance the emotions within the scene, and no weight to the fight scenes. In Fire Force's fights before Benimaru's breathtaking scene, it's understandable for audiences to miss the intricacies of Fire Force's sound design. I did the first time I watched it. But that scene pushes sound to the forefront and makes it unmissable and reminds you to look out for it in the rest of the show. To truly understand how essential sound design is to Fire Force's success, let me play the clip again with no sound. And once more with no visuals and just the sound. Which one feels more impactful? After seeing that scene for the first time, it felt like an anomaly, a one-off moment. But upon a closer inspection and a rewatch, I realised that every single fight scene in the show is filled with equally impressive sound design. Even the very first fight at the train station is breathtaking to listen to. Occasionally Fire Force likes to remind audiences of its mastery of sound design, using distinguishable effects, like with the Adola link, or or Shinra's light speed. But most of it is used to accent what is happening on screen, not become its own statement piece. When looking at any artistic element, it's important to know who's responsible for it. After all, every aspect of film, TV, anime, manga, paintings and novels, any form of art, all intentional choices. Fire Force fans have this man, Jin Aketagawa, to thank for the show's sound design. Aketagawa has been working in the anime industry since the late 90s, and been a sound designer since 2005, starting with the miniseries Yane's High Kick. Since then, he's worked on countless high-profile shows, including Code Geass, Your Lie in April, the Gundam franchise, Blue Box, Dr. Stone, and Food Wars. In fact, Aketagawa works on roughly 20 anime per year as a sound designer. His work on Fire Force is the culmination of decades of experience. But what is it that actually makes Fire Force's sound design so good? Much like how animation studios allocate their budget to certain scenes to give them higher quality animation, it is easy for a sound designer to include one or two statement pieces to wow the viewer in lieu of consistently good sound design. As I said earlier, every scene in Fire Force is filled with consistently great and interesting sound design. But while the consistent quality of Fire Force's sound design is vital, I don't think it's the most important part. At the end of the day, any creative decision made on a show is in service of the overall story. The script, the character design, the fight choreography, the composition and framing, and the score are all there to accentuate the overall story. Sound design is no different. Fire Force's sound design isn't just impressive because it's loud and features lots of reverb. It's because the chosen sounds and the effects placed on them fit with the tone and vibe of the show, and elevate the already gorgeously animated fights to the next level. Every single punch, kick, and use of pyrokinetic abilities is given a real sense of weight by Aketagawa's choices. It's unfortunate how uncommon Fire Force's quality of sound design is. To put it into perspective, we need to take a look at bad sound design. It would be really easy to pick an objectively bad show as an example, like 2016's Berserk. But to truly put it into perspective, we need to examine a series that is beloved and seen as one of the best, while potentially incurring the wrath of the entire fanbase. The show that I want to focus on and brutally dissect is Jujutsu Kaisen. Before the mob comes to get me, I love Jujutsu Kaisen. It was one of the first series I fell in love with, and I've gone back for multiple rewatches since. But in some of its biggest fight scenes, the sound design falls short of the strong animation quality. One of Jujutsu Kaisen's most endearing qualities is its fights, yet in comparison to Fire Force, they are nowhere near as impactful. We're going to take a quick look at Itadori's Black Flash. Within the context of the series, it's incredibly powerful, but for the viewer at home, it sounds just like every other punch and kick that came before it. The obvious fix would be to dial up the gain and give Black Flash audible weight. But one of the biggest misconceptions about good sound design is that it needs to be loud and borderline oppressive on the ears. However, good sound design doesn't have to be overt, it just has to enhance the viewing experience. How much better would Black Flash be on screen with a more distinct, punchy sound effect to go along with it? Apparently I'm not the only person who thinks that, as several fans have taken it upon themselves to redesign Jujutsu Kaisen's sound effects. Hopefully Mappa will pay more attention to its sound design in the coming seasons. That remains to be seen. So we've examined Fire Force's sound design and looked at what happens when sound underperforms. Now I want to emphasise how effective Fire Force's audio is by looking at a show that uses sound design to the fullest, without just turning the gain up to 11. For that, let's look back at the clip I showed earlier from Samurai Champloo. Champloo is somewhat of an anomaly among samurai anime because it refrains from excessive sound design. Just like the clip from before, every fight in Samurai Champloo uses muted and quick sound effects for the sword slashes. Even when they collide, the sound of swords doesn't nearly break your speakers, nor does it divert attention away from the action. Yet the sound design is one of the show's best and most memorable elements. Shinichiro Watanabe, the show's creator and director, likes to wear his influences on his sleeve. The sound of Champloo's sword fights are inspired by classic samurai movies like Sanjuro and Seven Samurai. This is one reason for Champloo's distinct sound. But what truly makes it effective is how well it fits with the overall vibe and tone of the show. Even in its most intense scenes, Samurai Champloo has a very relaxed atmosphere to it. To use anything but muted sounds for the fights would distort the show's overall tone. As a result, sound engineer Masashi Yabahara created something that fits the show's tonal aesthetic and plays into its distinct identity. As well as being memorable on its own, the end result elevated the overall story, which should always be the top priority. So what can our anime learn from Fire Force? The most important lesson is that sound design shouldn't be treated as an afterthought, or simply as something that is necessary because anime requires sound to function as a medium. Just like with animation, acting, composition, and every other aspect of a medium, sound design provides nearly limitless opportunities for creatives to enhance the impact and identity of what happens on screen. Fire Force is a result of treating sound design as an equally important aspect of a creative process. Samurai Champloo proves how effective creative sound design can be at enhancing a story's tone, while Jujutsu Kaisen demonstrated what happens when it isn't respected at all. Without creating an audible identity for a series that fits in with the overall tone, anything that happens on screen will feel flat. Only from that foundation can sound designers go off and add in occasional scene-stealing sound effects, like this one.
使わせてもらうぜ。